evening and welcome to Town Meeting Television's continuing coverage of primary elections 2020. The primary is August 11th, and hopefully you have gotten your ballot through the mail or are planning to vote at your local polling place. Tonight we are with the state representatives for Chittenden 4-2 Republican primary. There's one seat. Sarah Toscano is the incumbent and Dean Rolland is the challenger. And we're so glad to welcome you both here today. Thank you. And why don't we start with you, Sarah, on the opening statement to tell us why you're running and what experience you bring to the position of House of Rep from Richmond.
From Heinsberg.
Heinsberg, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, that is not okay.
It's okay.
Heinsberg. Yes, thank you.
Probably not the only one you've done of these. I'm an incumbent candidate, but I am not an incumbent because I have not won, but I have run before. So as far as my experience goes, I advocate for, I do so much in a week, it's hard to even know where to start. I am a 38-year-old mom of 2 toddlers, wife and EMT. I am a Second Amendment advocate, and I run a public service group, which we started after COVID just to help people with everything that they're having trouble with during the pandemic. And we are getting some really interesting calls, but I also volunteer to dog rescue. So I have a lot of different types of activities I do every single week, and I have a lot of varied experiences. In addition, I was a social worker for 11 years, and I'm a recent survivor of a brain tumor. So I've had quite an interesting interesting time since the last time I was here. My impact statement.
Well, why don't we pause for a second? I'm going to let Dean introduce himself. Okay. And just to kind of recap and where we are, we're at the Republican primary for District 4-2, which represents the community of Heinsberg. Sarah Toscano has run in the past against Bill Lippert, who is the incumbent, and Dean Rolland is running also as a Republican. The primary is August 11th. And Dean, why are you running and what qualifies you for the position?
Thank you for having this and having us together. It's a great honor to be part of this and to have dialogue. It's always a good thing. It sharpens the saw, as I say. So what I hear from Vermonters with my business and local, that the taxes are high, there's a lack of affordability, there's some intrusion on some fundamental rights, and I hear this through neighbors, I hear this through people I've spoken to, I hear this through customers in my business. And what I've experienced myself personally, having moved here to Heinsberg with my family, that there are some things that are a little bit shocking where it relates to the high taxes. Did some research. The collective tax issue on the Vermonters is actually one of the highest in the U.S., and it is in fact the highest as it relates to property taxes. So all those, taxes are okay, they're good, they add value, but at the same time, the people working to produce all that should not have to be saddled any further. So what I look at it from a business standpoint, as a business owner, my background, I have 30 years in manufacturing and sales operations, quality. I've done business turnarounds or development activity. And all of this has taught me to do things in this big spirit of helping all stakeholders. I'm talking about employees, the community, the suppliers, the owners, everybody, to the businesses to help everybody with a paycheck and the tax base. I get it. I've been part of that. So what I've seen along the way is, coupled with my schooling as a bachelor's of industrial engineering, I've done co-op where I've worked in different areas in the country, and along with some graduate work, I get an understanding of business and all that. But the key thing is a collaborative approach. What's different that I have is I understand and will listen to people in the manufacturing sector, from the janitor all the way to the top. So I value people's input, and taking all that, I believe I can help balance fiscal responsibility within the legislature, which is fundamental to one of the things we've got going on, which is a budget issue, which may or may not be a question later. But we've all got to run our personal lives and a business with a budget. So does the state. I think it can help value with that. Thank
So
you.
why don't we go, thank you, Dean Rolland. Why don't we go right to the budget question? You know, given the unprecedented revenue and expense challenges that Vermont faces this year and next year into the future, what's your approach to balancing the budget? Or do you even think we should have a balanced budget?
The short answer is yes, because if you could take debt and loans, that's pay me now, pay me later, and it gets worse. So how do you make up for it? So without, I'm by no means an expert. I'm learning. This is a great exercise. There's a $70 million rough shortfall in meals and tax revenue, personal income tax, and gasoline tax. Running my business, I see exactly what's going on there. That's collectively the negative impact on the tourism business. That doesn't mean there's other things, but I'm just using that as one example. It is actually the second biggest economic engine in the state is our tourism industry. Right now with COVID, it's like handcuffed, shackled, and not able to function, which is going to cause the shortfall. So those things, the key is, and it's not simple, but it's getting people involved. We have to get tourism back online. It's not that we're not. I see it personally because I don't see certain pieces of the business happening because people aren't here. From Quebec, elsewhere, UVM, traveling teams, students, all that is revenue in the state that we've lost. But what's also important, I got to make a very clear statement. I find it grossly irresponsible that the state legislature voted themselves a raise when we have businesses closing, people getting laid off. If I was elected, I would go in and immediately put a legislation to repeal that, because now is not the time to give people raises when there's other people suffering. So the reality is there's likely cuts. I think there's a way to do this because every business has done this. I've had to do it personally in my own household. It's priority-based budgeting. It doesn't mean you cut everything. You've got to make some hard calls and look at the essence of what is truly needed to support the vast majority of the population in the state. The government needs to act like the businesses, like we do in personal, and just cut where it's needed, not across the board, but tough decisions have to get made. I've done them. And I would meet with legislators, government, local people to understand what are those needs.
Awesome. Thank you. Sarah Toscano, your approach to the budget challenges Vermont faces.
Well, being that I'm running as a member of Team CLAR, we do have a unified priority schedule. But generally, we're all on the same page, at least on our team, where we need to prioritize job creation and cut some things where possible, live within our means to a much better extent. Stimulate our economy with tax breaks for creators of good paying jobs, and get rid of the program that simply stimulates individual taxpayers by giving them $10,000 to move here, because they will soon find out when they get here that they won't be able to afford to stay if things continue this way. And we need to cut as much redundancy as possible, which we do have a lot of, and a lot of very high level, high paying administrative jobs, which we really just can't support at the moment. And personally, my own contribution to this is that I have a $500 a week limit that I've set, that anything that I make every week over that will be sent directly to my fire department. So that's my contribution to our budget issue. I will never take from the pot. If other legislators are voting themselves a pay raise, I will not be participating. I take, the $500 that we need to pay bills, and the rest goes directly to the fire department, which I am a part of. And so, it will pass along, and
there we go.
Sorry, little off track. Lost my train of thought.
That's all right. You gave us a good, robust 2-minute answer. So we're all set. We're going to move on to education. Why don't you talk, Sarah Toscano, about how, in light of the decline of the student population in Vermont, how the state can afford to continue to deliver high quality education, K through 12.
I'm about looking at needing that myself very soon because my son is 4. So yes, that will definitely, he just missed the cutoff. So this year we're starting pre-K at home. We, as far as being a member of Team CLAR, our main priority was preserving rural schools through the repeal of Act 46 and returning local control to schools. And it depends on which part of the state how they would need to stay or be changed, because whatever benefits the children best. Because in some places that they may need to, the school districts may need to stay merged, and some they may be choosing to just merge classes. And but the main idea is to return the decision making to the community, which is the best possibility. I don't think that I should be, the one making decisions from Montpelier for Barton, Vermont, when if I've driven through it, I probably don't remember it. I'm not the best one from Montpelier to be deciding how they run their schools. That is for sure. The local school board and the citizens are. So that's my approach to that.
All right, thank you so much. Dean Rolland, what's your approach to the quality of education in light of the resources we have? Thank you.
So to the question I had, there's 2 key words, and I'll speak to both of them: decline in student population and affordability to keep the education system intact. So the fundamentals to all of this, and there's probably themes with maybe half the questions, if not more, it's all economics. We have to have a pro-business climate to create and ensure the jobs that we have, which the jobs are there to pay the property taxes. That's how a lot of the schools are paid. If you don't get the property taxes, you can't pay for the schools. So we have to promote business, period. Because businesses employ people, and then when they employ people, the people get paychecks, they get taxes. So that's how that flows through. So there's some things that, candidly, I'm educating myself on, but there's some rural exchange concepts that are going on. This isn't a local issue or a state issue. This is a national issue. There's a lot of states that have rural education systems. We should not be operating in a vacuum. There's some things going on where there's places in Ohio, Pennsylvania, West, and Vermont participated, which is great. The Vermont Rural Exchange, where they'll share best practices to support the rural education. Just like some other topics, we need to not strip it apart, but get creative. And this is my collaborative approach. There are things other states are doing. There's things we're doing well. Somebody needs to go and share these things on symposiums and educate, to take lessons learned on how to better leverage the students that are spread out, the teachers that are spread out, things like that. Now, I don't have all the answers. If we all did, or anybody, we would have fixed it by now. But I believe in meeting with, this is the collaboration again, with legislators, educators, local at the state level, finding out specifically what is needed, and then try to get creative to allow, I wouldn't say the not so much the government to get involved, but let the private, the community, what they need. The people in Rutland know better what's going on, candidly, no disrespect, than what's going on in Montpelier. No different than Heinsberg. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about the opiate epidemic, Dean Rolland, and do you think that we have made headway? Is there more to be done?
There, like anything, it's a continuum. Educated myself on a lot of this stuff. What's positive is there's a 40% reduction in opioid prescriptions. That's a combination of less pills and just less medication out there. That is a good thing. This is per something I understand from Dr. Leffler with UVM, who's involved with this stuff. That's a positive, because if there's less stuff out there, there's less people to get hooked. So that's a positive. There's a hub and spoke program that's going on in the state that's actually nationally recognized, that integrates some of the private sector to get people off the streets, on treatment, care systems, things like that. And I heard there's actually now a zero waiting line in Chittenden County, which is great, because there's a problem. There's the prevention, which I'll get to, and then there's how do you deal with it as it is. Those that are seeking treatment are up. Those are good signs. You can say, well, treatment, there's a problem. Well, at least you're trying to prevent deaths, so that's a good thing to put a stopgap in. However, the reality is, though, is that deaths are up, both in opioids and fentanyl, due to which there's a synthetic. The synthetic use is up. So what it looks like to me is maybe the prescription side of things is locked down, but there's another source coming in, which it is, where people are buying it on the streets. The other problem is only half that are having an issue are being seen. So I think this all leads to, we got to go forward, keep the gains we've had, just don't back. Obviously, we got to continue to prosecute people that are bringing stuff in, and we got to improve pain management that doesn't involve pills. The doctor even admitted that, and there's creative ideas, but it still goes to educate and prevent. And what we can do to do that would be fantastic. It starts with the kids.
Thank you very much. Sarah Toscano, your view of the progress we've made in fighting the opiate epidemic.
I actually think we've backslid to the point of being pretty seriously near destruction. The fact that they've closed at least one residential center, and we were already didn't have enough of them. As far as prevention goes, you have to start pretty far back in the fact that when you have a depressed economy, you tend to have more of this, more drug use, drug abuse going on. We need to expand counseling support and all sorts of things, but what I don't like to see that we are currently perpetuating is so much ongoing medication-assisted treatment. When I was working in the field, there was absolutely no goal to remove people from medication-assisted treatment, and that was basically just waiting for somebody to relapse, which was not helpful. So when we get the proper pain management, that's a whole nother story. I have a whole list of people who sent me emails, letters, things like that, talking about the fact that they are not being treated for pain. And you can't just say they can't have their medication simply because it is, not convenient for the doctor to properly monitor the pain patient. I think there's a lot to go through here that needs to be basically rolled backwards and try again. Right now we have basically treatment for outpatient and, medication assisted treatment. That seems to be about all. And we need to pretty much revamp and start over.
Okay, thank you very much. What about gun rights? What's your position on gun control legislation, Sarah? Do you think there should be additional legislation?
Oh no, I think there should be no additional legislation. And in fact, I would love to see some of it rolled back to the point of, if it can't be rolled back through legislation, I would hope that the courts will take charge and take care of it, because the best way to empower a person is to help them defend themselves. So yeah, that's definitely
could you be specific about what you would roll back?
All of them. All of the current gun control laws.
Waiting periods, for example?
Yes. Well, we don't currently have one. It has not passed. So definitely waiting periods actually put people in danger, because quite a few people spoke at the State House saying that they left a spouse, a partner, and they basically had to spend days hiding because they were unable to defend themselves. We did not sleep, things like that. And I don't wish that on anybody. Obviously, nobody wants to have to defend themselves, but the fact their capacity to be able to is vital.
Thank you so much. Dean Rolland, what's your view on gun control legislation and its status in Vermont?
So there should be, we're pretty like on the same page with some of this stuff. There should be no added legislation at all. The Second Amendment is very clear on that. The founding fathers are geniuses in a lot of ways. They're not perfect, but there was a reason why that was instituted in our Constitution and in our policies. In the reality too, is per factual data, Vermont is actually has the lowest, lowest murders of any state, and the second lowest in crime. That doesn't, mean, that there aren't problems, but we have way bigger issues to worry about. Any of the other 10 topics here on our list, in my opinion, are way more of a priority than this. And the reality of the matter is most of any issues, this is a root cause. This is the quality engineering business guy. The root cause of a gun problem is a mental health problem. Cars are weapons, airplanes are weapons, bowling pins are weapons, food is weapon, pencils, pens, knives, anything, steps, ice. Opioids are killing more people probably than guns. So the reality is that the proper training, which there's a lot of Vermonters have that, and they do a very good job at that. It starts at the home. So I'm about, let's focus on a lot of other priorities and dealing with messing around with Second Amendments. I've had people telling me they're concerned about it. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Do you have a question for Sarah?
Do I have the only one? This is good on pain management. I know she's a little closer to it than I. When the reference that I've got with it is that people become addicted due to first starting out with pain meds, and then they can't handle it anymore, and there's a psychological, abusive, addictive nature. And Dr. Loeffler said what was prescribed and developed, they thought would only be short term, and the chemical impact is showing that it lasts longer term. So they've got an existing medication profile that creates problems, and they're looking at, doesn't mean that that's the challenge, is how to how to deal with the pain management other than pills. I love trying to deal with stuff without.
So Dean, what's the question?
So when you say pain management, what would be some good, if you know of any that way? Because I'm learning. If you know of something, let me know. I'm looking for it.
Okay, great, Sarah.
So the question is, what are other options, or what do people? Why do people need it, or what is the
other options for pain management?
Well, we could jump into a whole new world of medical marijuana if you want to talk about that one.
Okay.
That we could be here a while for that. But there's also, I get what you're saying as far as pain management goes. When if you're dealing with an injury, I understand what Dr. Loeffler is saying, but it's not usually injuries heal. There are people that have chronic problems like degenerating spines who cannot stand up, and they're being told that, oh no, they can only have 2 bottles of narcotic because that's the limit. They don't seem to have any common sense,
And you say medically they can't do anything about it. It's a chronic, like a disease, and they got manage. Yep.
Something that's not going to get any better.
Right.
So there needs to be some common sense leeway for the doctors to manage pain, and they can't seem to. As far as legislating or whatever the rules are, it actually seems to be DEA version of it has cut them off if someone broke an ankle or if their spine is falling apart. So that is where we're having problems.
Thank you, Sarah. Do you have a quick question for Dean before we wrap up?
Actually, I've talked to Dean quite a bit. I think that I don't have a ton. I don't think I do have a question. Most of the questions I've asked him.
Awesome. Do you want to give a 1-minute closing statement?
Sure. Sure. Okay. Sorry. Just revisiting things. My my experience is oh so very is oh so varied, and I am a very I have a lot of experience advocating for constitutional rights, and I am a advocate who does not quit. Most people who've known me know that is the case, and that I give my all to everything I put myself to. So I just appreciate the vote on August 11th.
Could you just add who you mentioned Team Sklar a couple times? Could you just give us a couple sentences on who Team Sklar is?
Team Clark. I'm running with John Clark who's the governor candidate. There's 30 of us total, as far as I know, who are running to try to make pretty much consistent change. If we run as a group and we work together and we get stuff done, essentially.
And are you all Republicans?
Most generally conservative. I think there's some independents. I think there might be a libertarian or two, but mostly Republicans. Yes.
All right. Thanks for clarifying. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Dean Roland, do you have a closing statement?
I sure do. I think that the biggest fundamental, one of the questions, because I'll answer because it ties into qualifications regarding, what's the, what is it here? It's the priorities for the next biennium, the most important piece of legislation. It is dealing with the budget and the shortfall, because that affects everybody. Because everybody pays taxes, everybody receives government services. There's people that are neighbors that work for the government. And if that generally goes in the wrong directions, we all suffer. So what we do is important, not only for now, but our future and our family and our kids. So this goes back to being able to make tough choices. I've done it running businesses. I do it now. I balance my own budget. I don't live off credit cards. I have to live in with my means. And there are creative ways to engage the communities that we have, because there's a lot of brilliant people. And I have no disrespect for the legislator if I'm elected, but there's not one person in the government smart enough to figure all these things out. And we need to rely on our neighbors, our community leaders, et cetera, because they're the ones in the trenches. I learned that personally by touring around businesses. I can't do it sitting in an office. I go out on the shop floor and I talk to my employees. I talk to my customers. What do you need? And I figure out systems with their input and their buy-in to get it done. So my goal would be to create town halls where I don't know, once a month for an hour. I don't know, people can come to my house, they can sit on my front, we can go organize and not sit behind e-media and post stuff. I want to look people in the eye, talk to them, hear what they've got to say, take notes, go and see. And by that, we'll get it done. Thank you. Vote for Dean Rolland.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have been speaking with Republican candidates for the primary for state representative for Chittenden District 4-2, which is Heinsberg, Sarah Toscano, and Dean Rolland. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay tuned to Town Meeting Television's continuing coverage of primary 2020. You can watch us on Comcast 1087, Burlington Telecom 17 and 217, and of course, ch17.tv and YouTube. Thanks for watching.
Thank you all.